Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money. And we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
At Amazon, we're pretty good at getting things done. We're pretty good at solving problems. COVID-19 is the biggest challenge we've had to face. But challenges are what motivate us. Like flying masks to our employees around the world. We're doing everything we can to get you what you need, and doing everything we can to keep our people safe. I'm former Navy pilot Sarah Rhodes, and I'm proud to lead our Amazon Air network.
What is happening today, everybody? Welcome to Glenn's Dynamic Sports Corner on 12-Ounce Sports. I am your host, Glenn Kaplan. We are live in Baltimore, Maryland, which is home of the Baltimore Orioles and the Baltimore Ravens. Welcome to the 135th show. And first of all, I would like to congratulate the Cleveland Browns on their first playoff victory since 1994. And it is a great night for the city of Pittsburgh. Not the city of Pittsburgh, the city of Cleveland. But it is also a good night for the city of Pittsburgh. Can I tell you why it is a good night for the city of Pittsburgh? Because the NHL season will be here in just a few days. That's why Pittsburgh Steelers fans should be smiling this morning. There's nothing to be ashamed about with that loss. There's nothing they should be ashamed about. Steelers fans should be smiling today that, hey, hockey's here. But now let me get into the logistics of that game from last night, where the Browns won 48-37 in dominating fashion. The Cleveland Browns, well, you know when the ball was snapped over the player's head, and you're like, oh, this is what happened in the Super Bowl back with the Seahawks and the Broncos. I'm like, oh boy. And Carl Joseph landed on it in the end zone for a touchdown. And I'm like, okay, it's just a bad start for the Steelers. It's going to be a long game. Then it's 14-0, 21-0, 28-0. I'm like, let's go, baby. I'm like, let's go, Cleveland. And then I'm sitting there in the third quarter, and the Steelers cut it to 35-23. And I'm like, please do not blow this. I do not want to hear that stinking darn fan base saying back, oh, we never stopped believing. We were down 28-0. It's the same old Cleveland Browns. Thank God I don't have to hear that narrative anymore. And if I were the Pittsburgh Steelers, you know what? I'm going to tell you a couple of things. You can blame Ben Roethlisberger all you want. You can. You know whose fault it is they lost last night? It's Mike Tomlin's fault they lost last night. And I know what you all want to say. Ben Roethlisberger was picked off 4 times. Who was the one that decided to rest Roethlisberger, Pouncey, TJ Watt, and Cameron Hayward? Oh, that happened to be the coach's decision, not the quarterback's decision. Whose decision was it to let the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs and not try and knock them out? Oh, that was Mike Tomlin's decision. That wasn't Ben Roethlisberger's decision. Also, Who's responsible for having them not make the playoffs the last 2 out of 3 years, and then they always lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cleveland Browns? Oh, it's not Roethlisberger's fault. Tomlin's the one that doesn't have this team ready to play. It's his problem. I said he should have been let go after they lost to Jacksonville. I know the Steelers don't do that. But maybe Mike Tomlin, there's a reason why he's never in the same class as Bill Belichick. Yeah, I know what you want to say, but Bill Belichick didn't have Tom Brady. Okay. Who would always outcoach? Mike Tomlin would always be a scaredy cat when he go up against Bill Belichick. Mike Tomlin is at fault for the Steelers' loss and not having them ready. How do you not have your team prepared a week before? And it looks like the Cleveland Browns were more prepared. Something tells me something ain't right here, and Kevin Stefanski didn't coach this game last night. And the Cleveland Browns, they took out all that energy, squeezed out all that juice just to get here and beat the Steelers. They might, you know what I think the Cleveland Browns are? They're like that 15-14 seed in the NCAA tournament. They squeezed all that ounce and juice to win the game in the NCAA tournament. Then they got to play this big-time powerhouse like a Kentucky or a Duke or a North Carolina or a Virginia and whoever else. And then, like the Cleveland Browns now got to face Kansas City Chiefs. I'm telling you, and I don't want to discredit the Cleveland Browns for the success they beat. Give credit to Baker Mayfield for what he did in this game yesterday. And I'm telling you right now, the Cleveland Browns with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt will want to run the clock and keep Patrick Mahomes on the sidelines. But that back end of that defense is not very good. As for the Steelers itself, where do you go this offseason? First of all, go find yourselves a running back. Second of all, go get yourself some new coordinators if you're not going to fire Mike Tomlin. Third of all, I get rid of Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, seems like that he was up to no good after they started the season 11-0 and went in a downward spiral at 1-5 to end the year. But listen, Pittsburgh, there's no reason to be sad today. It's a good morning. It's a brand new day. Smile. Pittsburgh Penguins hockey only starts in 2 days from now. Just remember that. Smile. There's nothing to be sad about. Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin will turn your frowns into smiles. How does that sound for some daily dose of medicine? As they say, as the doctor ordered, right? I'm just saying, the doctor did order that. And that's what we need today, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They get knocked out, but hey, the Pittsburgh Penguins are here just in time to save your souls. Come on. The Steelers lost, and they didn't want to take the spotlight away from the Penguins. And as I've said time and time again, it's a hockey town, not a football town, as in the past decade. And this postseason failures is the reason why it's a hockey town and not a football town as of late. So let's see what the stats were from this game. Let's see. Oh, Baker Mayfield completed 21 of 34 passes for 263 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also rushed for 3 yards on 5 carries. Nick Chubb, 76 yards rushing on 18 carries, 4 for 69 and a touchdown. Jarvis Landry, 5 for 92 and a touchdown. Austin Hooper, 7 for 46 and a touchdown. David Njoku, 1 for 7. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 1 for 8. Rashard Higgins, 2 for 28. Kareem Hunt, 48 yards rushing on 8 carries and 2 touchdowns, 1 for 13 receiving. Let's go check out what the Steelers did. Ben Roethlisberger, 47 of 68, 501 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 1 carry for no yards. Chase Claypool, 5 for 59 and 2. James Conner, 37 yards rushing, 11 carries and a touchdown. 5 for 30 receiving. Benny Snell, 2 for 13 rushing, 1 for 4 receiving. They need a running back. James Washington, 5 for 72. Eric Ebron, 7 for 62 and a touchdown. Deontay Johnson, 11 for 117. Juju Smith-Schuster, 11 for 157 and 1. I know what y'all saying, but Glenn, Juju Smith-Schuster, 157 yards. 11 touchdowns. Not 11 touchdowns, 11 receptions and a touchdown, but Juju Smith-Schuster was not the problem. You do realize that he's becoming a wannabe Antonio Brown, right? You do realize that I just don't think they're going to re-sign him. I know Steelers fans want him back, but I think there are more questions than answers about Juju Smith-Schuster at the wide receiver position, and also if Ben Roethlisberger is going to retire for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Moving on to my next segment. You know the old phrase, revenge. Everyone loves getting revenge on something. Well, the Baltimore Ravens are completely and utterly ruthless at what they did yesterday. Let me just say something. I was thinking about this morning. It had to take them 5 dominant defensemen in the NFL, and Yannick Ngakoue, Brandon Williams, Calais Campbell, Matthew Judon, to stop one man in Derrick Henry. Just think about that for a minute. And yes, that's a credit in the team win and the team effort in the Baltimore Ravens 20-13. But let's not pretend that, even though that was one of the reasons why they won the game yesterday, the main reason why the Ravens beat the Titans is John Harbaugh outcoached Mike Vrabel for all 4 quarters. And I know what y'all were thinking, 10-0, and I was too. Titans up, Ravens gonna choke again, Lamar Jackson, and they finally win a playoff game. They finally did it under Lamar Jackson. But he wasn't that great. He wasn't that spectacular. Defense wins. Happens in this NFL once in a while that defense wins games. I think it's the new phrase. The old phrase, defense wins championships, offense wins games. I'm going to say the opposite happened. Defense won them that game, but it's going to have to be their offense that wins them the championship. That's what I'm going to have to say about the Ravens. Wow. After Ryan Tannehill was picked off by Marcus Peters, the entire Ravens team went on that logo, stomped on it, and I'm telling you, Marcus Peters and then Marlon Humphrey, laughingly and funnily, decides to sit on the Tennessee Titans logo like a downright boss, and this is what he had to say about it on his Twitter this morning. He was probably watching Get Up on ESPN like I was. When somebody makes a play, you go celebrate with them. It just so happened to be a logo where we celebrated. Wow, wow, wow. And then Ed Reed, the former Baltimore Ravens all-time great safety, was absolutely disgusted in the Baltimore Ravens scene and what they did yesterday. Even though you may not like Ray Lewis and Terrell Suggs, they probably never would have pulled that stunt in a million years. And Derek Wolfe is right. It is an emotional game. You don't know where your emotions are going to take you one place to the next. That defense carried them yesterday, and they could definitely go on the road and beat the Buffalo Bills. Because I'm telling you something right now, and I'll probably get into it on Thursday. Marlon Humphrey and their other safety will double team Stephon Diggs and have that defensive line dictate terms to get pressure on Josh Allen. I'm telling you that right now. That's going to be the game plan for the Ravens defense on Saturday night. And if you don't think that's going to be the game plan, then what in the high seas football are you watching? I'm saying he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Coverage quarters who had 8 forced fumbles during the regular season. Humphrey. Then the safety over the top. They did it a couple times yesterday on A.J. Brown. And the fact that Mike Vrabel was... You want to know something? That was the most scared I've seen Mike Vrabel ever coach a football game. He was more scared to lose it than he wanted to win it. And he's going to be losing maybe his best offensive coordinator coach in Arthur Smith, who's getting interviewed by every single team in the book. So, Corey Davis, they're not going to resign him. Get yourselves a defensive coordinator. We'll see what general manager John Robinson has to fix in the offseason. Just a reminder that it had to take 5 guys. 5 big, strong, powerful guys to slow down one man, Derrick Henry. That's how great he is. You think I'm joking? It had to take him that much power to take a guy down like that. So in the 2013 win, as I said about Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, and Terrell Suggs, and Khalif Raymond slipped on that Marcus Peters interception, and Corey Davis did not do a thing, and he's probably not going to be re-signed in free agency. So I said Calais Campbell, Unique Ngakwe, Derek Wolfe, Matthew Judon, Brandon Williams, they stopped Derrick Henry. And the Titans needed a defense coordinator, and Lamar Jackson completed 17 of 24 passes, 179 yards, 1 reception, rushed for 136 yards and 16 carries, a touchdown. J.K. Dobbins, 43 yards, rushing 9 carries, and a touchdown. I thought he was pretty effective. I know Lamar Jackson had that first touchdown in the game, but they didn't contain their gaps there, Tennessee. Gus Edwards, 38 yards rushing on 8 carries. Marquise Brown, 7 for 109, 19 yards rushing on 2 carries. Mark Andrews, 4 for 41. Patrick Ricard, 3 for 26. Willie Steenifey, 2 for 9. And let me say this, and this actually almost cost Baltimore. The pass interference call on Willie Steen was ridiculous. I thought that was pretty cheap. You know what they say? Penny pinching. Cheap. Could you say that about the referees all weekend? They were mostly terrible and atrocious. That's what I have to say about this weekend's officiating. Ryan Tannehill completed 18 to 26 passes, 165 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 reception. Oh, where was the read option on Tannehill? They didn't do any of those. He also rushed for 6 yards and 2 carries. Derrick Henry rushed for 40 yards on 18 carries. Also caught 3 for 11. A.J. Brown, 6 for 83. And a touchdown. Anthony Firkser, 2 for 44. Nick Westbrook, 2 for 17. Jonathan Smith, 2 for 9. He also had a key drop on a 3rd down. That reluctantly Vrabel decided to punt instead of go for it. Cameron Batson, 1 for 6. Jeff Swain, 1 for 5. All right, next up, Indianapolis Colts versus the Buffalo Bills. Game recap. The Buffalo Bills took down the Indianapolis Colts by a final score of 27 to 24. So Phillip Rivers tried a Hail Mary late in the game by 3 points, and when they were down by 3 points, with 4 seconds remaining, but the throw didn't even reach the end zone, and Jordan Poyer batted the football down. So around 6,700 fans were allowed at Ralph Wilson Stadium, Orchard Park, New York. And I'm just going to say this. That was fun and electric for the Buffalo Bills fans to finally witness a playoff game for the first time since 1995. The Buffalo Bills. And maybe we could have the Lake Erie Championship, AFC Championship game between the Cleveland Browns and Buffalo Bills. That would actually be pretty funny. It feels strange. It actually would feel strange. But here we are in the most unprecedented year ever in the entire NFL. And Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and the Harvey Hartzell of the Buffalo Bills. I mean, he didn't dwell enough to win, but he's going to have to be even better the next round and next round if they want to win the whole thing. So Josh Allen, in this football game, completed 26 of 35 passes for 324 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also rushed for 54 yards, 11 carries, and a touchdown. Devin Singletary rushed for 21 yards and 3 carries. He also caught 3 for 23. Zach Moss, 21 on 7 carries, 4 for 26 receiving. Stephon Diggs, 6 for 128 and a touchdown. I mean, he's been the best offseason acquisition. being traded from the Minnesota Vikings. And then Gabriel Davis caught 4 for 85. I mean, he's becoming a solid number 2 wide receiver, and I think he's going to have a big game for Buffalo next week. Cole Beasley, 7 for 57. Dawson Knox, 2 for 5. Phillip Rivers, 27 of 46 for 309 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor rushed for 78 yards and 21 carries and a touchdown. He also got 2 passes for 6 yards receiving. Naeem Hines rushed for 75 yards and 6 carries. He also caught 1 pass for 8 yards receiving. Michael Pittman Jr. caught 5 passes for 90 yards receiving. He also rushed for 11 yards on 1 carry. Jack Doyle caught 7 passes for 70 yards receiving a touchdown. Zach Pascal caught 3 passes for 37 yards receiving a touchdown. T.Y. Hilton caught 2 for 32. Mo Alley-Cox caught 4 for 32. So, use promo code 12OunceSports, all caps, for deposit bonus up to $1,000 from my bookie. We are live on 12 Ounce Sports, and I hope you all enjoyed Wildcard Weekend. Well, the 135th show here today, and once again, as I always do, on every single show, shout out to JB Beck, Cody Jensen, and the rest of the 12 Ounce Sports team for a wonderful job they always put in every show, week in and week out with this station. And we are growing with followers, viewers, and listeners. Please give us a follow on our Facebook page, our Twitter page, and on our Instagram page. Thank you very much. It is truly appreciated. Now I'm on to my next segment. Here comes the defense of the Los Angeles Rams. And say what you want about the Los Angeles Rams and their offense with John Wolford, who had to get hospitalized because he took a hit from Jamal Adams in the first quarter. He started the game, but then Jared Goff came in, and his thumb seemed good enough to win. It felt good enough. Here's the thing. The Rams' defense was so good it wouldn't have mattered to the quarterback because they basically shut down Russell Wilson. Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp expected to play next week, and this Rams defense is very, very special. Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, Michael Brockers, Leonard Floyd, Fox. This team is loaded, and defensive coordinator Brandon Staley. I'm going to say this about him. He's probably not getting interviews for coaches this year. You know what he's like? He's like Robert Saleh of the San Francisco 49ers. Did a great job with the 49ers when they went to the Super Bowl, but then you saw what he did with all the injuries, and now he's getting interviewed for head coaches. And this is what's going to happen with him next year. He's going to be the number 1 target next year for head coaching jobs. He's going to be the number 1 head coaching target for Sean McVay. This is probably Sean McVay's best young and bright assistant he's ever had. I have no idea how he found him or snatched him up. But this is a props to Sean McVay and the rest of the Los Angeles Rams organization. Because the Los Angeles Rams are going to be a tough out next week against the Green Bay Packers, but they may not be able to generate enough offense. And oh, here we go. If the Rams win, oh, Glenn, what about defense winning championships? Yes, I'll have to hear that stunt. And I don't want to have to hear that shtick all week if I do not have to. And I'll be like, oh, I told you so. Defense only gets you so far in today's NFL. And I know what you're saying, but Glenn, the Titans won one and done. They had no defense. Or whoever. The whole 9 yards. Yeah, I get it. I get all that. But who in the high seas really is going to know what wins championships anymore? Is it offense? Is it defense? Is it special teams? Or is it the combination? I guess it's all a mixture of both in good coaching and good play and execution. So in this 30-20 game, as I was saying, Wolford started this game for the Rams, but then he didn't kind of be hospitalized. But good news is, after he came back from the hospital, he was in the locker room with teammates after the game was over. And Jared Goff completed 9 of 19 passes for 155 yards and 1 touchdown. He also rushed for 4 yards on 4 carries. John Wolford completed 3 of 6 for 29 yards. He also rushed for 2 yards and 1 carry. Cam Akers rushed for 131 yards on 28 carries and a touchdown. He also caught 2 passes for 45 yards receiving. Malcolm Brown rushed for 30 yards on 9 carries. He also caught 1 pass for 9 yards receiving. Cooper Kupp caught 4 passes for 78 yards receiving. Robert Woods caught 4 passes for 48 yards receiving a touchdown. Tyler Higbee caught 1 pass for 4 yards receiving. Russell Wilson completed 11 of 27 passes for 174 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And Russell Wilson, the RPR of the Seattle Seahawks, he was not on his A game at all. Russell Wilson is going to have to find a way to fix it in the offseason because he started out hot and then he wasn't so hot. And I know he's done a lot of things with Grayson class throughout his career. So, did they want to be run first or pass first? That was a very confusing thing. And Pete Carroll and their general manager John Snyder is going to have to figure out what the deal is in the offseason. And there are rumors that Snyder might be bolting Seattle for maybe a Detroit Lions general manager job or something else. Darius Williams returned an interception, 42 yards for a touchdown second quarter for the Los Angeles Rams off a screen pass. And that was the first time this year something like that has happened. Chris Carson rushed for 77 yards on 16 carries. DK Metcalf, 5 for 96 and 2 touchdowns. Tyler Lockett, 2 for 43 yards receiving. All right. Next up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against Washington Football Team. So, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took down the Washington Football Team by a final score of 31-23. So, even though Washington did not have Alex Smith, you got to give Taylor Heineke a ton of credit for battling out this game. And let me say this, and Tom Brady, even though Heineke responded, Brady kept punching and punching and punching until Heineke ran out of gas, and the gas inside the car did not have any more fuel. Tom Brady just had a little extra fuel to get to his destination, and Heineke didn't. But Washington is heading in the right direction. Do they want to stick with Heineke in the future, or do they want to draft a quarterback or build around Heineke, get some more wide receivers, or get some more help in the secondary, along with that beast defensive line? And I'm going to say this, and this is why Rob Gronkowski is the greatest tight end who ever lived. He held Chase Young to nothing, and so did the offensive line. There is no way on this planet Earth that Travis Kelce would have done to Chase Young what Rob Gronkowski did. Yeah, Rob Gronkowski didn't do much on the stat sheet, but once again, like his time in New England, completely blocks and mauls defensive linemen, as they say it for a tight end. You gotta block like an offensive lineman, you gotta catch like a wide receiver, and there is no other tight end in the history of the NFL that can do such a thing. Tony Gonzalez, Travis Kelce are good tight ends, very good tight ends, but Gonzalez isn't what Gronkowski played like. Neither's Travis Kelce. Kelce's not that strong of a blocker. Kelce would have gave up a couple of sacks on Chase Young. I'll tell you who would have done that on Chase Young. George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers. That's the only other tight end in the league that could have done to Chase Young on Saturday night what Rob Gronkowski did. Because I'm telling you something, George Kittle's the next closest thing to Rob Gronkowski that wise. But glad Travis Kelce's going to win Offensive Player of the Year. Travis Kelce is the security blanket of Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelce's just another wide receiver playing the tight end position. Travis Kelce's not as good of a blocker as you think he is. Go ask Travis Kelce to block Chase Young. The results would have been different. Travis Kelce would have been frustrated, and I'm telling you that. You think I'm crazy, but you also know that's true. Rob Gronkowski is the greatest tight end who ever played this game, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Cameron Brate wouldn't have done that. Why do you think they asked Rob Gronkowski? Rob Gronkowski is the greatest tight end of all time. And I will stick with that position basically forever. I'm not changing my stance on that one. You got to give credit to Tom Brady and his offense and Bruce Arians, but Ron Rivera, Taylor Heineke also deserve some credit as well. So in the 31-23 game, Tom Brady played well in this football game for Tampa Bay. He completed 22 of 40 passes for 381 yards and 2 touchdowns. Leonard Fournette rushed for 93 yards on 18 carries and a touchdown. He also caught 4 passes for 39 yards receiving. Keyshawn Vaughn rushed for 21 yards on 5 carries. Mike Evans caught 6 passes for 119 yards receiving. And the thing is, Ronald Jones II, he did not really play much in this game due to injury. Cameron Brate, 4 for 80. Chris Godwin, 5 for 79, touchdown. Antonio Brown, 2 for 49, a touchdown. A potential X factor next week for Tampa Bay against New Orleans. And a stat released by Kay Adams today at the NFL Network. The team that went 2-0 in the regular season against division opponent. The team that has swept the season series has won the next game, the third game, 65% of the time, which is a very good number. Yeah, Tampa Bay's got a chance at 35%, which I think is pretty good. Maybe they're playing better as of right now, but we will see what happens as the week goes on. That Brady versus Breeze matchup is going to be a ton of popcorn, and I'm not surprised that's the 6:40 game on Sunday evening, Sunday night, whatever you want to call it, on Fox. That's going to be a treat with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman probably calling the game, listening to all of it. And I'm telling you, that's going to be fun, and tuning in and listening to that show. Yes, I know some people don't like listening to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, but I think they're the only crew on Fox that's capable of calling games. I like the CBS crew much better than Fox. So, getting back on track, Scotty Miller 1 for 15. Now, Taylor Heineke completed 26 of 44 passes for 306 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. What else happened? He also rushed for 46 yards and 6 carries and a touchdown. The legendary status of Taylor Heineke is officially underway. Maybe, just maybe, he earned himself a contract with Washington or a different football team next season, and maybe with a different franchise that could overpay for him based off of one playoff game. Antonio Gibson rushed for 31, and he was a stud at Old Dominion. Antonio Gibson rushed for 31 yards on 14 carries. He also got 2 passes, 4 yards receiving. And I'm telling you, Antonio Gibson is going to be one of the focal points for Scott Turner's offense moving forward. Antonio Gibson is going to be a very good complementary running back to J.D. McKissick. So moving on from Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick rushed for 5 yards on 2 carries and a touchdown. He also got 2 for 8 receiving. Cam Sims, 7 for 104. Terry McLaurin, 6 for 75. Logan Thomas, 5 for 74. Steven Sims, 3 for 33 and a touchdown. Jeremy Sprinkle, 1 for 8. So the last NFL wildcard game I get to recap today, the Chicago Bears against New Orleans Saints. So that was a 21-9 game win by the Saints against the Bears. It's close in the first half. And Javon Wims could drop the key touchdown, would maybe tie the game at 7, change the entire complexion of the game, but it didn't. And the game not only was broadcast on CBS, it was also broadcasted on Nickelodeon. And there were a lot of fans that really, really, really enjoyed it. But I'll get to some of that SpongeBob stuff in a minute. So, 21-9 win for the Saints over the Bears. And the stats were, and I thought Drew Brees actually played very well. He does a lot of things. Entire NFL career with grace and class. So, completed 28 of 39 passes for 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 rushes, 2 yards, and 3 carries. Alvin Kamara, first game back since the coronavirus list. 99 yards rushing on 23 carries and a touchdown, 2 for 17 receiving. Taysom Hill, 4 for 15 rushing, 2 for 5 receiving. Tavius Murray, 4 for 9 rushing, 2 for 11, and a touchdown receiving. Deontay Harris, a little speedster, 7 for 83. Michael Thomas, first game back in a few weeks. From the ankle injury, he's been banged up all year. Would have been a Pro Bowler this year if he was fully healthy. 5 for 73 and a touchdown. Jared Cook, 4 for 40. Michael Burton, 2 for 15. Little Jordan Humphrey, 1 for 14. Adam Trotman, 1 for 40. Emmanuel Sanders was held in check, but he's going to have to be much better next week, who was 2 for 3. So now on to the Chicago Bears side of things. Mitchell Trubisky, 19 of 29, 199 yards and a touchdown. Now they're going to have to figure out if Mitchell Trubisky is the answer moving forward or not for the Chicago Bears. Will they keep General Manager Ryan Pace? Will they keep head coach Matt Nagy? There's a lot of things that's going to be discussed here with the Chicago Bears in the offseason. Trubisky also rushed for 10 yards and 3 carries. Dan Montgomery rushed for 31 yards on 12 carries. Allen Robinson, caught 6 passes, 55 yards receiving. And I guarantee you he's probably on his way out of Chicago, a free agent. New York Giants, maybe a potential landing spot for him. And maybe Daniel Jones could get his finally number 1 receiver and they could finally draft one. Riley Ridley, 2 for 36. Javon Williams, 1 for 28. Jimmy Graham, 2 for 25. A touchdown. Anthony Miller, 2 for 22. 1 for 2 rushing. He was kicked out of the game. Gardner Johnson, Chauncey Gardner Johnson, was he's always like drawn guys to be ejected. It happened with Javon Wims in that matchup earlier here at Soldier Field. DeAndre Carter, 3 for 17. Cole Kmet, 3 for 16. So for the Chicago Bears and Nickelodeon, Sean Payton did a lot of things. He took a slime challenge after the game was over. And I thought it was pretty funny. Why do I think it was pretty funny? Because he did it because he wanted to do it for the fans. And I'm not surprised he did a thing for the fans here. And it was funny. It was, he did it with, he was very happy that he did such a thing for the Chicago Bears, not the Chicago Bears, New Orleans Saints on Nickelodeon. You know, when Michael Thomas scored that touchdown, slime went in the end zone. Can you imagine if he actually got slime during the game? That would have been funny. You know what? Instead of Super Bowl Gatorade this year, why doesn't the NFL also broadcast the Super Bowl on Nickelodeon and do slime? That would be so much fun. And SpongeBob, let me get into some SpongeBob sports here. So I remember on Instagram Live, this was with friends of mine back, I don't know, maybe last year or the last year or two. And we always talked about a SpongeBob starting lineup in basketball. So there was a question asked on Twitter, who would you have at starting it? So I just did a starting offense. My starting quarterback would be Sandy Cheeks. Very quick, very elusive. She could run like the wind, like Lamar Jackson. So she would be a dual threat quarterback. Running back, Plankton. Why do I choose Plankton as the running back? Yeah, I know how he's small, but defenders, they can't see him. They're not going to be able to see him or tackle. Well, it'd be easy to tackle and step on him, but I like that choice. Wide receivers. Well, obviously you got to go with Squidward Tentacles. Where he goes, a new job where he gets fired from the Krusty Krab. I could be a football player or a spaceman or whatever else. So Squidward could catch touchdown passes. I like SpongeBob at wide receiver. He absorbs things. He won't be able to drop passes, so he could absorb the football right onto his body. And then at tight end, oh, Larry Lobster, your red zone threat. He's very tall. You're not, what are you going to have, like 5'10" corners on Larry the Lobster? And then you also have a tight end, Mr. Krabs and Patrick Starr. I don't know who you put on the offensive line. That might be a problem. But I think that'd be fun. SpongeBob football would be fun. I will have to get back to you on that later. But now let me move on from my Nickelodeon stunts here. I'm moving on to the New York Mets make a trade with the Cleveland Indians. Who would have thought that the Mets would have automatically got better when they got rid of the Wilpons? Or should I say the coupons? But before I get into this next thing, use 12-ounce sports, all caps, positive bonus up to $1,000 for my bookie. And with the blockbuster trade, here's who the Mets acquired. Not only did they acquire shortstop Francisco Lindor, but they also acquired starting pitcher Carlos Carrasco for shortstop Ahmed Rosario, second baseman shortstop Andres Gimenez, prospect right-handed pitcher Josh Wolf, and prospect outfielder Isaiah Green. That's who the New York Mets decided to trade for and who they decided to give up. So let me calm down here a little bit instead of me screaming into the microphone here a little bit. So let me say what I have to say about this trade. So it's reported by Jeff Passan of ESPN. Okay. And I found out this trade, it was like right after the show was over. I was like, wow, the New York Mets are making changes. And Steve Cohen in his front office, he's letting his front office do his thing. Now, the New York Mets are going to be one of the favorites to win the National League next year. But you still got the Los Angeles Dodgers, and look at the San Diego Padres. And I'm telling you, there's still the Atlanta Braves and the Washington Nationals within your own division. Those are the two, the National League is going to be maybe top-heavy next season. I think the National League is going to be really top-heavy, and the rest of it's going to be weak. I think the AL will be more competitive than the National League next season. I think baseball next year is going to be a very top-heavy sport. I think you're going to have 5 to 10 teams dominate the sport, and then there's going to be everybody else. That's what I think is going to happen this upcoming season. I do not know why I think that's going to happen, but I think it's going to. And I know there are Cleveland Indians fans that are very upset about the trade, and I know I was texting one of them about it the other day. And I get out the fact that their owners are penny pinchers and they want them to sell the team. I understand their frustration. Mets fans dealt with that frustration. But I'm just going to say this. The New York Mets are in win-now mode, and they mean business. And there was a statistic why they traded for Lindor. They said Lindor at shortstop was like the 5th best defensive shortstop. Med Rosario was like one of the bottom in the league. That's why they made that trade. They got to save runs. Their defense behind that starting pitching was awful. So now you have Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard, Marcus Stroman, Carlos Carrasco, and David Pederson. And Trevor Bauer made a Google eyes who did not sign a contract yet with anyone, said, interesting. Maybe he unites with Lindor and Carrasco on the Mets, who they both play with in Cleveland. When they went to World Series 2016, blew a 3-1 lead against Chicago Cubs. But don't get me started on that. Now I'll get to the Chicago Cubs in a minute. But the New York Mets are doing so many good things now. And I know New York Yankees fans are probably mad and jealous. I understand that. Sure. You would have thought Francisco Lindor, Carlos Carrasco, that trade would have been made by the Yankees. And I get all that. I understand that. I understand you're upset. But here's the thing. Here's what I don't understand with the Yankees. The Mets make that trade for Lindor and don't give up their top prospects. But why don't the Yankees pay for DJ LeMahieu is what I don't understand. That is something I do not understand. Why do the Yankees do not sign DJ LeMahieu? We are January 11th, and we are not far away from spring training. We're not far away from spring training. And here we are, wondering why LeMahieu's not signed, and the Mets make this blockbuster trade, which I totally understand. So now next year for the Mets, as of right now, the lineup looks like you're going to have Jeff McNeil at second base, Pete Alonso at first. Shortstop is Francisco Lindor, J.D. Davis at third. Left field, you're going to have Dominic Smith, center field, Michael Conforto, right field, Brendan Nimmo, and James McCann at catcher. And there's going to be no DH in the National League, probably. So that's going to, as of right now, and I know I'm still probably a month or two away from making these bold predictions, my MLB predictions for the season. But if you had to ask me right now, who I like, maybe 6 or 7 teams to potentially make the playoffs in the National League next year, obviously you got to start with the Los Angeles Dodgers. You got to start with the San Diego Padres, that's 2. I got to go with the New York Mets, Atlanta Braves. Washington Nationals, I think, will be there. I think the Philadelphia Phillies are a mess. The Miami Marlins on the right track, but they benefited from a shortened season. They'll be back to where they belong in the cellar of that division next year in the NL East. NL Central is going to be a very weak division. The Chicago Cubs will be rebuilding. The Pittsburgh Pirates, probably the worst team in baseball again. And then it's going to be a one-team race between the Cincinnati Reds, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Milwaukee Brewers win that division. Maybe I would take the Cardinals. On the American League side of things, probably the Yankees and the Blue Jays. Rays are going to take a step back after trading Blake Snell to the Padres. Red Sox are rebuilding. They may go sign George Springer, though. Mets may not need him now. Orioles will be still rebuilding. And then you got the Chicago White Sox and the Minnesota Twins, who I think are both going to be better than Cleveland Indians. They have no offensive presence. The Kansas City Royals and Detroit Tigers still in the rebuild. And in the American League West, I like the Oakland Athletics. That's going to be one team next year. I think the Houston Astros time is up. They got the Los Angeles Angels. I don't know what's wrong with them. Mike Trout should have never signed that contract with the Angels. And then you got Texas Rangers, Seattle, and Mariners, who basically stink from the S to the K. So on to my next topic. Washington. So great trade by New York. And they're becoming a serious contender in the National League. This is all reported by ESPN's Jeff Passan. Steve Cohen, the presser was this morning for Lindor, and tomorrow at 11 at the same time will be for Carlos Carrasco. So now the Washington Nationals signing. The Washington Nationals signed outfielder Kyle Schwarber to a one-year deal worth $10 million. Now, this is the second powerful move the Washington Nationals make this offseason, and I like it. So it appears that the Chicago Cubs are blowing this thing up, and it was rumored that the New York Mets were trying to acquire third baseman Chris Bryant from the Chicago Cubs. But there's no way the Mets, Sandy Alderson, Steve Cohen, are giving up on, and Jared Porter, general manager, are giving up on prospect catcher Francisco Alvarez, and they know James McCann is a bridge gap for a couple years until he's ready. He's probably the best prospect in the Mets farm system they had in years, other than they also have Ronnie Maccaro, another shortstop who they think's better than Ahmed Rosario, and Andres Gimenez. And they have Francisco Lindor for now. They're going to hopefully sign him to a contract extension. Maybe you could play second base McCarr in the future. So as for Washington, they also traded for first baseman / third baseman Josh Bell to Pittsburgh Pirates during the offseason. So now you got power. Kyle Schwarber in left field. You got Michael Taylor, Victor Robles in center. And in right field, Juan Soto. You have him. Then you could have Carter Kieboom at third. Or you could have Carter Kieboom at third. Trey Turner at short. And then his battle position at second base. And then you could have Howie Kendrick at second base. Oh, Ryan Zimmerman might be coming back at third base this year. And then you could have Josh Bell at first base. And then you could have catcher. And then you could have Yan Gomes as the catcher. So that's going to be a pretty good lineup for Washington. And as long as you got Steven Strasburg, Max Scherzer as your 1-2 horses, as long as they stay healthy, Patrick Corbin's a nice number 3 starter. Yeah, the Washington Nationals are going to be a nice baseball team this year. They'll be in the hunt for the wild card, maybe in the NL East. Do you know what happens every year after a team wins the World Series? Stuff like this happens. It's shortened season. Juan Soto got struck with coronavirus. They had some other injuries. It happens. They're going to be back in the playoff race next year. Dave Martinez is a fine manager. They thought he was going to be fired after the second season. But then they turned the ship around. And now it appears, yeah, you could say what you want about management for kind of being cheap, for not bringing Anthony Rendon back, who signed with the Angels. But the Nationals low-key made some very good offseason moves. And the Washington Nationals will be in play with the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves next season in the NL East. And the Washington Nationals will be a fun team to watch next season. So, in the final few minutes of the show today, opening night in the NHL preview. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, we are at this point. No more training camp. And that will all go away because on Wednesday night, the 13th, January, the NHL season is officially here. So we will have 5 games on tap. The first one is the Pittsburgh Penguins versus the Philadelphia Flyers, 5:30 p.m. Eastern on NBCSN. So that will kick off and face off For the first time this season, Pittsburgh will have everyone healthy except for Kasperi Kapanen, who is quarantined and just got into the country. So the Penguins will have all their bodies except for Kapanen, so it's going to take some time. So I'm going to take the Penguins over the Flyers 4-3 on Wednesday night. Next matchup we have on tap for NHL opening night, the Montreal Canadiens versus the Toronto Maple Leafs, 7 p.m. Eastern on Sportsnet. I'm going to take the Toronto Maple Leafs 5-2 over Montreal Canadiens. And I think Toronto's going to want to make a statement that they are going to be the best team in the Canadian division this year on opening night against its arch nemesis. And those Canadian games are going to be something this year to watch. They're going to be something to watch. Right, Cody Jensen? Right, Jamie Beck? Right, whoever else who's a big hockey fan? Next up, and right, Pete, as well, Chicago Blackhawks versus the Tampa Bay Lightning, 8 p.m. Eastern, NBCSN. So the Tampa Bay Lightning will raise the banner, the championship banner, in front of around 4,000 fans, maybe more, and that's going to be a special night. And they are loaded, even though they don't have Nikita Kucherov to start the season, or they don't have him for the regular season, they're going to be just fine. You guys still got Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in the midst of a potential Super Bowl run, and Tampa Bay is in that stadium. Raymond James Stadium's hosting it, just like the time the Lightning hosted that championship party during the fall on the boats. I wonder if the Buccaneers would do the same thing if they actually won the Super Bowl, did a boat parade. That would be pretty cool. So, I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Lightning to completely blow out the Chicago Blackhawks 6-1. The Blackhawks are going to be in for a very long season. You don't have Jonathan Taser, captain, Patrick Kane, and Alex DeBrincat's all you got, and also Dominic Kubulak. And then Kirby Dach is probably going to miss the entire season with a wrist injury. Hurt in the World Juniors for Canada. That's not very good for Chicago. But Tampa Bay is probably going to steamroll and probably maybe steamroll everybody through the regular season. But then the postseason might be a different animal. And Vancouver Canucks versus the Edmonton Oilers. 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern on Sportsnet and Sportsnet 1. Now, this is a very intriguing game for a couple of reasons. Vancouver's going to want to show that bubble was not a fluke. But Edmonton's going to want to show that bubble thing, that playoff collapse in the bubble was a fluke. I'm just very curious how this is going to go, because I like Vancouver's young promise and future with Elias Pettersson, Brock Bossier, Quinn Hughes, Thatcher Demko. You got Braden Holtby in that. And then for Edmonton, other than Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and others, you got Josh Archibald. And you're going to have to step up your game. Alex Chason is a very good role player on the second or third line. But their defense, Ethan Bear, Darnell Nurse, and Oscar Klefbomber, 3 guys to keep an eye on. And Mike Smith better be ready to roll, or there are going to be problems for the Oilers in net. Lastly, St. Louis Blues versus Colorado Avalanche, 10:30 p.m. Eastern on NBCSN. I'm going to take this one to be a wild, wacky shootout. Colorado Avalanche 5, St. Louis Blues 4, and I think the Colorado Avalanche, led by Nathan McKinnon. And that offense is going to be a juggernaut with Mikko Rantanen and Tyler Yost and Gabriel Landeskog. You also got Cal McCarr and Tyson. You don't have Tyson Barrie, but you do have a rookie who I think might win the Rookie of the Year in Bowen Bryant. I would keep an eye on the Colorado Avalanche this year, even though Phil Grubauer could be a problem net. And Pablo Francois actually did play very well last year. And the Blues, Jordan Binnington may struggle, so keep an eye out on that one. So in the last few minutes, along with the NHL opening day, before I get into my next segment, quickly just for a moment, that I'm happy that the NHL is coming back. 56-game regular season, you're not going to be able, it's going to be playoffs from the start because you're only playing divisional games this year, and I'm telling you right now, this is going to be the most intense hockey season that I've probably ever seen. It's probably going to be more intense than that shortened season 2013. Good news for for the team that wins the President's Trophy this year, because it is a shortened season, not an 82-game regular season, the last time a President's Trophy winner won the Stanley Cup was the 2013 Chicago Blackhawks in a shortened season. So I hope you all get to keep an eye out on that one. I want y'all to keep an eye out on that one. So now here's my last thing that I want to say for today, and it wasn't on my agenda, but I have a minute or two to discuss it. So the College Football National Championship tonight between Alabama Crimson Tide #1 seed versus #3 seed Ohio State Buckeyes. Alabama destroyed the Notre Dame Fighting Irish 4 seed in the National College Football semifinal, and so Ohio State destroyed the Clemson Tigers, the #2 seed in that semifinal. And I think Alabama wins 45-34. That's what I think the final's going to be. I think Mac Jones, Devonta Smith, Najee Harris, and if Jalen Waddle plays, it's going to be too much for Ohio State's defense. And Justin Fields and Chris Olave is going to be a nice connection. But they're not going to be able to stop that defense, even though, yeah, you got Shaun Wade in that defensive front. And they're very good. The defensive line's up front, but they don't have like a Chase Younger, Nick Bosa, or Joey Bosa. And that's basically what I got for Alabama and Ohio State. Ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time here. Thanks for tuning in to Glenn's Dynamic Sports Corner. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day and also enjoy your week as well. Here, though, nonetheless, I will be back on the air at the same time as Thursday, and I'm going to have my first serious mock draft of the NFL. I'm going to preview the divisional round of the NFL, NHL opening night game recaps, maybe some NBA game recaps, maybe some FanDuel and DraftKings segments, and amongst other things. Though nonetheless, we'll see what happens. I'm so excited for next week, though nonetheless, already for the NFL games. Use promo code 12ouncesports, all caps, with deposit bonus up to $1,000 for my bookie.